Hey there everyone, welcome to Crappy Reviews, the home of no rules reviews. And what's no rules reviews mean exactly? Well, it means whatever I want it to mean. I don't adhere to any set professional standard, it's all raw and my own personal thoughts and opinions, and if you don't like it, don't watch by all means. Pretty simple really, but there's always some morons who don't understand what optional content is. Today's the big day, folks. I'm reviewing Uncharted 4: A Thief's End exclusively on the PlayStation 4. Now, leading up to the release of this game, I played through all of the Uncharted games in the Uncharted collection on the PlayStation 4, and I'll go on record as saying it's one of, if not my absolute favorite PlayStation franchise. I think Uncharted 2 is still one of the greatest games last generation and maybe of all time, and it still holds up today. Uncharted 4 is literally the reason I bought my PS4 to begin with, so it's been a bit of a rocky road for the Uncharted 4 game before it even came out. Having seen the writer, director, actors, and animators all leave at various points during production, can the franchise survive everything thrown at it? Let's find out. Now, graphically, Uncharted 4 should be in everyone's mind when picking a top 5 list for best graphics in a game this generation. Definitely in the top 5. There's a lot of little attention to detail, and going from place to place, that makes it all the more impressive. For example, Drake can get muddy, and then the mud washes off when you hop in the water. And also, when you come out of some water, you're absolutely soaked and you have that wet look. Even your hair. It's really amazing how they used the game models for the cutscenes from the actual game as well. It really immerses you into the game all the more. Wonderful job right there by Naughty Dog. Now, if I had any complaint with the graphics, it's that the character models look a little off. Especially Sully's model, who looks like he had some very bad plastic surgery. The frame rate chugged a bit here and there, but really it's nothing too terrible. Now, the thing that really bugged me throughout the game was the motion blur effect, which bothered my eyes throughout my playthrough of the game. It didn't really get any better for me, so if you have an issue with motion blur, there's no way to turn it off. You're just kind of stuck with it. Now, the gameplay is pretty much exactly like all the other Uncharted games. The new tweaks will all seem very familiar if you've played the latest Tomb Raider game, however. Basically, Drake can now throw a rope with a hook and swing over distances, and he also gets a pick to help him climb up walls, and you get that at about the halfway point. Now, the gunplay is far superior in Uncharted 4 than the previous entries. It just goes to show how bad the other entries suffered from this technical standpoint, yet nobody dared mention how bad the mechanics were in the previous games. There's loads of weapon variety here. You'll absolutely love the different weapons. Now, you will find yourself climbing a lot in this game, and there's various puzzles to solve in order to progress the story as well. A couple of gameplay elements really started to bug me from an early point in the game, however. First was the cart on wheels, right? There's this crate on wheels that you have to use, and it shows up around 20 to 30 times in various areas. You have to use it to climb up on things or, whatever, and this crate has wheels and you push it around, and it all becomes very annoying and frustrating. What it really reminded me of was all the points in The Last of Us where Joel had to use that board to float Ellie across the water because she couldn't swim. The other thing that bugged me about the game was the amount of climbing. I know Uncharted games have always had that element, but this game really took it to the extreme. It was very repetitive and monotonous in my opinion. Now, without spoiling much of the story, I will say that the story is very cliche and somewhat ham-fisted in my humble opinion. Drake is out of the treasure hunting game, settled down and married. Not gonna get dragged back in, not him. Whoa, Nelly, no sirree Bob. When suddenly the brother, who we've never heard of prior to this game, comes asking for help. Funny story, in the previous Uncharted games, they even mentioned that Drake was an only child. So it seems very forced to me that Drake now has a brother. And worst of all, he isn't a likable character in the least. He's not a character you actually want to help. He's a scumbag. He looks greasy and he looks like he smells. The other jarring factor in the game is that it starts off almost exactly like the first Uncharted game did. Then it flashes back to Nathan as a kid. Then it flashes forward to when he's about 20. And then it flashes forward to a more recent era. And eventually, you'll catch up to where the game started you off at. It's very odd how it's laid out. I get a feeling that Neil Druckmann one day said, hey, let's rip off the Goonies, Assassin's Creed, The Last of Us, and Tomb Raider. And they combined it all in to create Uncharted 4. Now, Tall Grass is a real superstar in Uncharted 4. Now you can use your Assassin's Creed type ability of stealth, kill your enemies, and speaking of killing, Drake is a cold-blooded murderer. Dude kills hundreds, if not thousands of people in this game. One of the main things that bugs me about the story and overall plot is that they've changed Uncharted from a really lighthearted and fun experience to a more dark and obviously Last of Us inspired tone. And I just wasn't a big fan of the change. I liked the fun of the other Uncharted games. They're just kind of goofy fun. Now, the multiplayer in Uncharted 4 is basic and it can be fun at times, but it doesn't hold a bearing on the score of this game one way or the other. The fact that the plot twist in the game was predictable certainly didn't help much with the score as well. And the fact that the only new things Uncharted 4 brought to the table were things that handled better in Rise of the Tomb Raider, and that didn't help either. Overall, the game tries to convince you that it's not linear, but there's really only ever one way to go, and everywhere else is completely closed off. Considering the staff problems and delays that Naughty Dog has suffered, it's more than obvious some things wouldn't be up to snuff. And with Uncharted 2 being the peak to the series, there's nowhere to go but down. I'm sure for the most part people will really enjoy this game, and it's not a bad game by any means. In much the same way you can enjoy this game like you would a Micheal Bay movie, you know, one of those summer action movies, things blowing up, not plot heavy or hard to follow. Don't get me wrong, Uncharted 4 is a very solid entry, which will probably take the average gamer between 10 and 12 hours to complete. There are some cool fan service and Easter eggs thrown into the game that I enjoyed, but it was hard to get over the terrible plot and repetitive nature of the gameplay. So at the end of the day, Uncharted 4 gets a solid 7.5 out of 10. Please remember to comment, rate, subscribe, rack 'em up. Thanks for watching, guys. Game on. Crapgamer, out.